You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Greetings to everyone, you that is watching us from the continent, in the diaspora, and everywhere. I hope you all are doing good. I hope everything is looking good out there. We're having some kind of like, as you know, connections from the continent or in the diaspora. Let us know if you can hear us loudly. Let us know if we are clear, if the sound, pictures, images, and everything is good. Thank you, Sister Lisbeth, watching us all the way, all the way, all the way from New Heavens, USA. Thank you for being here, Stevie. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for taking your position to moderate the conversation in the chat room. Benjamin, I welcome you. Thank you. The whole team is right here. And S.A. Smith, okay, thank you. Watching from Texas, America. Habari, Habari, beautiful family, and from Ghana. Thank you. North Carolina is in the place, and the Caribbeans is in the place, just as usual. Thank you. Greetings, loud and clear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you. Oh my God. Let's see people that are here before we get back to the studio to, this is the day. Cameroonians are also here. I see a lot of, I think Professor Kelly's, team. One Onye Kam is right here. Sound is good. Thank you very much. Onye Kam is watching. El Shaddai is watching from Yaoundé, Cameroon. Um, Stevie, you say you're watching from Los Angeles, California. Thank you. We have a lot of Californians always in the house. So please let us know where you're watching from, because the conversation actually would redirect positioning your area. And yes, thank you so much, dear Cheryl. Love from Brooklyn. Thank you. Thank you so very much. So much hearts coming up here. And also, we want to know where you're watching, Facebook or YouTube, because we're trying to actually, like, yes, create our accounts and stuff. Let me see all of you that are watching here for the first time. Make sure you are typing in. Gerald, Mr. Barbot said, I'm watching from Austria. Austria is in the place to be. Yes, Ghana is here. So, Professor Kelly, the moment you begin to see this kind of backgrounds and where people are watching you, so you already know why they are here, because apparently you are the finance manager of the continent of Africa, and the Africans have
Mhm.
been really, really hungry to ask a lot of questions when it has to do with the economics of Cameroon. So, oh, sorry, the economics of Africa. So, yes, let me officially welcome you to Pan African Daily TV. Professor Kelly Moore is our latest professors and lecturers and experts in the community of our lectures here live on Pan African Daily TV. Pan African Daily TV is the voices of Africans by Africans. So we have our lecturers who lecture us from their perspective, right? I mean, like, we have read, we have studied, we have visited, we have schooled in and out of the continent, but now it's time to tell our own stories by ourselves. So our able professors who are competent experts, have traveled, have studied with a lot of international knowledge, is really here actually to share this competence and expertise with us. So please prepare all your questions and your comments. You drop them in the chat. Professor Kelly would see them and would actually answer and respond to them. So our topic today is it's a diamond topic, like what I can say. And I think from his profile, you have read all about it. I don't know. I don't know how I can start sharing. This guy is sitting here. I'm so sorry. I have to call you a guy, not just because, that's how we Africans, we do it the African way. Like, you can see who is Professor Kelly. You see a lot of wait. I have to do this. Thank you. He's just been the newly elected African Trade Insurance Agency. We don't know what that is. So Professor Kelly is definitely going to tell us. And he stands really, powerfully represented. Professor Kelly Moore is the first Cameroonian to be elected board chair of the African Trade Insurance Agency. That has to do with a lot of money, right? So Yes, that's just one of those things that I'm saying. And then when we go on again, we're going to see, I'm just trying to dash out the kind of competence that we're having here on Pan African Daily TV, the most trusted social media platform that hosts Africa's biggest Pan Africanists and intellectuals, scholars, researchers, authors, the best on the continent. So you can rely on our information right here from Pan African Daily because we are talking to experts with facts on the ground, have studied in Cambridge, Harvard, all sort of, I don't know what, and now lecturing from an African perspective. So you can see this is the number, just a few of what Professor Kelly has written, has authored, and talk less of the countless publications that this boss man here has been able. I read this book, Disruptive Economy, and that was some of the thing that tricked me because we were in a conference in the US and this book was used as a reference when they were talking about, blockchain technology or whatever. And I never knew all these kind of big words. And this book came up. And the introducer of that book said it's written by one of the most intelligent economists on the continent, and it's a Cameroonian. That was when I was like, what? Wait a minute. Cameroonian? Who? I'm also from Cameroon. We got to dig this out. So you see, a native of Cameroon, but of course, we do know we are all African. So, yes, that's the profile of Professor Kelly. But just, I mean, you can Google, you can Wikipedia, you can Geniuspedia, you can link in, you can look in. Everything is right here before us. I want to give you the profile so that you should not be intimidated. You should not be intimidated to bring your questions because he is going to handle all your questions depending on the thousands of books he is reading and publications. And yeah, so greetings. I know my introduction is always so long because you're a first time guest on the Pan African Daily TV. I cannot say everything about you. Professor Kelly, welcome to Pan African Daily TV. How are you doing?
I'm good, Dr. Rita, Dr. Tata. It's a pleasure to be on this platform and connect with brothers and sisters across the world. I don't always like to present myself like you've just presented, like someone who knows it all, because it's always, a learning experience, an opportunity to exchange, an opportunity to dig deep, an opportunity, to exchange what others have in terms of perspective around the world. It is our Africa, it is our motherland. The cry is for us to see how, we can move from blaming ourselves, blaming each other, to actually taking responsibility for the building, the transformation, the restructuring, the reshaping of the continent. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the opportunity of meeting new people, exchanging with them, sharing my little experience and knowledge, and then we take it from there. So, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, from whatever part of the world you're joining us, and it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here. One thing is sure, like someone once said, one thing I know is that I know nothing. So let the learning continue, and let the exchange start.
Thank you very much, Professor Kelly. On Pan African Daily, we know something. I think that those kind of stuffs were given by, I don't know, the people that already invented so much. All our experts know everything, so we're not going to dodge and hide behind that question of like, I know nothing. You know so much. I mean, sitting on all this board. Just tell us a little bit background about yourself, positions that you've been studying all over. You're just all over the place. So give us a little bit insight about you.
Yeah, so I'm a finance engineer. I've had over 25 years of progressive work experience, working and learning at the same time. So many people always ask me, you look relatively young compared to the kind of professors that we are used to having. I say it's about hard work, it's about dedication, it's about continuous learning, it's about fighting to make yourself better every day. Like you said, in terms of authorship, I've authored over 25, over 45 books and more. In terms of articles, I've stopped counting.
Mm-hmm. Because we know that's the anthem on the Pan African Daily TV here. Particularly, Professor Kelly is connecting from Yaoundé, Cameroon, and we do understand the challenges of the continent, and that's why exactly we are having these conversations to look for challenges, for solutions to this kind of challenges, like network issues. That should be the number one. I'm just from there, so I know what it is. So I know the issues that Professor Kelly is facing right now with his network, but he would join us. So we have to continue the conversation as we know it. So he was telling us, he's authored more than 45 books, a lot of publications, and the handwork is reading everywhere. You could get to know about him. But before he comes back, I wanted to give you a tip of the iceberg why he's away. Now, our conversation is focused on, despite the riches and the wealth of Africa, how are Africans benefiting from this wealth of Africa? So whatever thing we're going to talk about is going to center about the prosperity of Africans, being indigenous and stakeholders of the continent that is so rich and endowed with all sort of riches, right? So regardless of whatever we're going to talk about today, the idea is for us to achieve this the answer or the understanding why Africa's economy and his wealth, finance, in terms of all the resources that we have, how does it serve the common African? Because we still talk today about so much poverty on the continent. We do know it, a continent that is literally so rich. And that's why in the community, African youths are tired of hearing a rich continent. They are sick and tired of hearing about Africa is the richest continent with so much wealth. And when they are not part of the cake, when they don't feel, they don't see, they don't get it, no access to the wealth on the continent. So we recently saw the conference that Excellency Paul Kagame hosted in Kigali on the new wealth of Africa. And this is exactly the position where we want to handle with Professor Kelly. He's going to lecture us on the new wealth of Africa and how we Africans are a part of that wealth and what we need to do and what are the solutions that, how can we approach to be a part of this. So like I said, while he'll be joining, like I said, he's already connecting, and this is going to be happening quite often, so that's fine. Professor Kelly, we are sorry. We do understand that you are having network challenges, but exactly this is the point. And I love it when it's happening to a financial boss of the continent, an engineer in financing of the continent, sitting in a country that has so much oil and energy, and a continent that is so rich, but now we're being kicked out from our streams because of network. How possible is that, Professor Kelly? Over to you. We do
Yeah,
respect.
it's possible because because of a lots of challenges. The infrastructure challenge, we have huge infrastructure problems. We need to work on the development of our infrastructure in the continent. The according to the African Union 2063 agenda, the idea is for the African countries to become rich, prosperous, and independent. Moving forward, and becoming rich, prosperous, independent would eventually take us to the stage of being an emerged continent. And being an emerged continent, it has to pass through, the development of infrastructure. Today, our potential, our revenue stream for investment is spinning around $3 trillion. But if we take only infrastructure alone, the infrastructure need for the continent is around 200. That is what we are looking at Africa. So the problems that we are facing today are problems that have been identified, which is already a beautiful thing. There are problems that we are talking about, which is already good. But the acceleration of the realization of some of these problems is coming with all the risk that we know and the limitation of the limitations that these risks are bringing is what is slowing down the development of the infrastructure. However, you started off by introducing me as the boss of finance in Africa. Um, I think you're referring here to the new role that I assume as the board president of the African Trade, Insurance, and Development Organization, which main objective was created to see how we can rethink risk, the risks of the continent, the risk perception of the continent. It is true, Africa has its problems, Africa has its challenges, but the presentation, the manner in which the problems are presented, does it really reflect the reality? Does it really align with what is happening on the ground? What if some countries are making enormous efforts and these efforts are not being communicated upon? What if these efforts are not being transcribed or seen the way it's supposed to be presented? So the organization for which I'm working for, it's an organization that is working towards, you know, de-risking Africa, making Africa the number one investment destination in the world. And this can only happen by underwriting the risk that exists, rightfully so. We are looking here at political risk, we are looking at economic risk, we are looking at social risk, we are looking at environmental risk. If the guarantees are there, if the securities are there, I think no investor should be worried or concerned about coming to bring their money into the continent. I don't know if this has answered your question, Dr. Tata.
Yes, absolutely. But when you talk about risk, what are some of these risks? You already talked about economic risks, wars and challenges and stuff like that.
Political.
Um, mhm.
Yeah. So the political risk of the continent is the continuous is the ease with which we've been witnessing some of the instability in some countries. And investors are really hesitant. They are concerned when a country is relatively unstable politically because of potential coup d'états like we've seen, or because of the perception that there's no sufficient democracy like the West would want to call it. But we've also seen countries where they don't have democracy, like in the Middle East, Middle Eastern countries and some Islamic countries who are really rich, who are well grounded, well established. They have their kings, they have their monarchs, and surprisingly, they're very, very prosperous and well respected. So, is it a double standard? Is it what is supposed to work for us? Is it what worked for us in the past? I mean, some of these questions are things that we need to really look at. But obviously, it brings us back to the question of you wanting to be sure. But you cannot be sure beyond what is provable that there is stability, and this stability comes from the fact that there are institutions, and the institutions come from the fact that there are rules and regulations that clearly govern and that establish and outline how some of these things are supposed to be handled and managed. So from that spectrum, it always calls for concern at the level of investors. The job here is to see how we can always reassure them that look, true, this risk exists, the political risk is there, but this political risk is mitigated by the fact that there is a constitution, there are systems that are in place, the systems have been working 80%, 90%, 95%, but they are there. Is there room for improvement? Yes, we know there is room for improvement. The economic and financial risk, the spin around, the debt sustainability of the country, the viability of the economy, the banking system, the monetary policies that are in place, and a host of all these other dispositions that normally exist in a structured economy. And once the banks are in place, well structured, well implanted. Once the government has the capacity, to contract debt and repay them, once the ratio of debt to GDP is relatively low, then okay. But again, if we take just the debt to GDP ratio, that is saying that a country cannot indebt itself more than 70% of its GDP, we see that Africans are kind of penalized in the sense that for most African countries, you see that their debt ratio to their GDP is less than 70%. For most Western countries, European countries, Asian countries that are doing quite well, it is over 100% of their GDP, yet they are considered more credible. So the credibility judgment, which is based on underpinnings that need to be looked at critically. It is true, they are going to say, economists and financial experts will say there are other external, like the fact that, they produce their own. So we borrow currency that we don't produce.
Um, I'm sorry, I have to take over. We just icing the cake, and I was already beginning to. I don't know whether we're still talking on the post on the section of investor. An investor is somebody that wants to invest in a country, and the risk of that continent is too much. Like he's saying, 70% of risk because of the wars, because of the political challenges, because of the coup d'etats, and stuff like that. That's the investor point of view. So we would go into what about the minerals of the continent? Like how we why are we looking for investors, as a matter of fact? That would be the next question to Professor Kelly. And yes, I know he's going to join us back here. You see, it just happened like a coincidence. Like he explains, goes out, and I have to explain and stuff like that. So be calm, but I want you to think ahead. You have to think ahead. You have to think ahead. When I say think ahead, means yes, the risk is there. These are for stable economies. Our economies on the continent, and these are some of the poorest economies that ever existed until they started patching and benefiting from Africa's wealth. I think he's still touching the small, little nitty. Like I said, before he joins us, we're going to be texting in the chat for us to know. Yes. So thank you. You're back, Professor Kelly. While you were away, you started by talking about the risk, the reason why we cannot get credibility in the world market to be able to get investors. Now, the question is just very simple. Why do Africa need investors with such a heavy amount? I mean, the richest continent, that's the code that we're going to be referring to. Why do African need investors?
The question about investors, I want to believe, is you want to find out why does Africans need foreign investors?
Yes.
Because we can have local investors. We should have African investors, let me put it that way. And African investors normally would come with local currency. They might even come with foreign currency for those who are in the diaspora like you guys. But the question of investors, whether foreign or local, is the quality of the investment and the quality of the debt that comes with it. If you look at most of the countries that are doing exponentially well, let's take the case for America. You see that it is doing exponentially well because of its diversity, because of its cultural diversity, because of its cultural people coming from all over the world and coming to contribute in one way or the other. Africans is sufficiently diversified. I mean, we're looking at the population today of 1.4 billion people in Africa. This population is projected to be 2.5 billion, by 2050, according to the African Union statistics. Do we say that 2.5 billion people are not sufficient to create the kind of investment that we need in Africa? I'll say yes, and I'll say no. Yes, in the sense that, I mean, we need, what is the quality of this population? This population 60% of the population are young people. If you look at urban migration today, it is increasing. In 2022, is considered 40%. They are projecting that by 2050 is going to be 60%. This urban migration, why are people migrating, moving from rural to urban areas? Because they're looking for opportunities. They're looking for jobs. They're looking for all the different kind of things. But the problem that we have in Africa is the change of mindset. We've been brought up to think that you have to go to school, you have to, after you finish school, you get a job, you work for somebody, they pay you a salary, which becomes a trap. If you flip it around, there was a study that I fell on while I was at in Harvard, where they were asking undergrads, what do you want to do after school? And 90% of undergrads said they want to create jobs, they want to be entrepreneurs. The same question was flipped around to less developed countries, not only Africa. And the reverse was true. 90% said they want to work for people. If you look at that kind of mindset, where 90% of 10,000 students graduating from universities every year are anticipating to go work for somebody, how do you create wealth? How do you create resources? Because what you have to know is that the investment that is brought back into the economy, it is the part of revenue that is not consumed, which is saved and eventually reinvested. Now, can you save if you don't have enough to eat? And if you cannot save to form a critical mass, can our banks be able to take care of our investment needs? Can our banks in Africa today be able to take care of the infrastructure needs for us to have an independent and stable internet connectivity? So you see that the problem is holistic because it goes right from the educational system that we have to the mindset of wanting to be dependent, working for somebody instead of thinking of creating. All societies that have evolved and emerged and eventually become are societies that when you look at them, they are very, very independent and entrepreneurial. They have a strong culture that bonds them together. What is typical of us? What characterizes the black man? Can we say that we're a strong force? Can we say we do things together? Can we say we can unite and say, okay, we want a transport system that can interconnect the continent? We've been talking about regional integration, free movement of goods and persons. I mean, these are things that we know we need them. I just returned from Nairobi. I still have to apply for a visa, even though the promises were made that as from the 1st of January 2024, this is going to be visa free. Why do we still need visas to move? So you see that there are problems of ego, there are problems of disintegration, there are problems of us not being able to come together, form a critical mass, because in everything that you do, that critical mass is needed for you to get the figures that can permit us to drive our investment. That's why I say the question can be answered yes, and it can be no. Yes, in the sense that, okay, we are rich, but why is it that the wealth of Africa, the questions I always ask myself, why is it that it's a white man or somebody, excuse me the term white man, why is it that it's somebody who's supposed to come from somewhere and tell you that, hey, look, you see this black thing that has been existing under your soil thousands of years? It is called cobalt. We can use it to do X, Y, and Z. You see this thing that is, under your land? It is called crude. What have we been doing to to discover some of these things that can permit us, to take the destiny of our continent into our hands? Those are some of the questions that, I usually reflect and ask myself. So yes, we can get the resources if we want to. We can come together and mobilize the resources. Not to talk of the other, socio-political, economic, and governance challenges that we have in the continent.
You already just kind of like remove the questions and answer them before we go there. Professor, take it easy. We have enough time to be here to digest these things, because like you're already answering questions that we're already like, what about the policies? Yes, of course, we're talking about these developed nations because of the policies and the leadership of the continent. What is the role of policies that facilitate, for instance, the inaccessibility of our currency? First, we have 54 currencies, which to trade, just like the issue of visa,
You have to take a visa to go to Rwanda. And then when you get to Rwanda, I don't know whether they use shillings or what, you have to change and use their money. And on the same continent, or Nairobi, I think you said it, Kenyan shillings is what they use. So there are a lot of trade blockages. The youth don't have access to finance. The African Development Bank, we're still going to come to all these topics. We don't know what they fund for the youth. Now, we cannot say we have to heavily invest in our youth. How? You are a banker. And I think you tell us about your new initiative also of coming up as a bank. I heard it somewhere. I didn't hear from you. And what is the difference with such a bank? So how can the diaspora get credit and loans from the banks in Africa? I mean, these are all questions that, yes, I know we're walking through the critical mass and stuff like that, but some baby steps that we already have expected to see in Africa today. The issue is capital. It's a lot of shame that we have to go to China or other places, so Chinese have to come, bring us money, loan us money at a high interest, take our raw material, go reproduce it, bring it and sell it back to us. Like literally, we just give our raw materials for free. Now, what is the role of the leadership and the governance in empowering the young people? Do they even know that the young people actually are the future that they even have to invest in? Do they protect their young people from, like you say, relocating overseas, dying in the oceans? Like, what is the like? You got it. Over to you, my professor. I'm sorry, I can be a little bit, but this topic is a topic that is boiling in the bones of every African, rich but poor.
They say necessity is the mother of invention, and the reason why people move from rural to urban areas is the same reason why people move from to the African continent and look for greener pastures in the Western world and beyond. Now, in terms of policies, yes, there has been a gap, and there is still a gap for policy to structure the economies of African countries in a way that we can work together and build towards a stronger and more independent African continent. The question is, when you look at the way the countries are functioning, you ask yourself at times whether they are intentional about driving the change that we are looking at. The fact that we are talking about it, having these platforms, is already very important, because it's like the third or fourth wing of the government, communication, putting pressure, discussing about these issues that can bring, some of the solutions that we're looking at. But again, there are intentional efforts that are being made at different levels. When you look at Africa 2063 agenda, I like to refer it because that is the African Union that is driving change and development in the continent. You'll see that there are so many policies that are being designed towards regional integration, towards job creation, towards strengthening our systems, towards building a more resilient economy, towards driving us to the emergence that we need. But the question still remains, do we really want to integrate? If we want to integrate, we should be more intentional. Our leaders, our heads of state, should be more intentional with very clear milestones, driving towards measurable outcomes that can tell us that, in 2024, this is where we were. And in 2027, this is where we are in terms of integration. But if it still remains per country initiative, it becomes a problem. I remember when they talked of one African passport, and the president of Rwanda, I think was driving that initiative. And he is the one who had one of the first African passports. How useful is that passport when it comes to the movement of persons? Again, we have to also understand that there is what we can do, and there is what the systems that drive the world, are also doing. If you take, for example, the drive towards a cashless society, we are all excited, towards moving towards a cashless society. But who are the ones driving the cashless society initiative? They are banks. When you have £50 or $50 and you use that $50 cash, you buy peanuts from a woman selling by the roadside, she has the whole of the 50 pounds. And you take that, she takes that 50 pounds, she goes and pays her child school fees, is 50 pounds. And the principal takes it and goes to the market and buy pens or whatever, is 50 pounds. By the time that 50 pound changes hands 30 times, it is still 50 pounds and it has created value. You multiply it by 50. But when you take 50 pounds, you do a transaction in any institution or using any system, and you have to pay a commission or a fee of £1.50 or $1.50. By the time the 50 pound goes round 30 times, it is no longer 50 pounds. So we need to think about that. Is that how we want to drive our economy? Is that how we want things to move? Now, when it comes back to even the way our products are being designed locally and sold, you see that the typical average African, because change is not a matter of top bottom, change is also a matter of bottom up. So many countries have seen revolution because it came from bottom. The intention of the people to have community development, to see, the well-being of their community and their environment. If you take, for example, waste management in Africa, in most of our capital cities, waste is all over the place. It's a huge problem for us. But this is $1 billion that is not tapped. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is not being exploited. Why is it that the waste, which is not even enough as input in a multi-billion-dollar industry, is a problem for us? So much of a problem such that we lack in our capital cities, we even lack manure to grow flowers. I mean, we lack even manure to grow crops, even locally. But you will see that there is a lot of waste that is dumped all over the place. There is a problem of mindset. There is a problem of change of mentality. We need to change the way we see things and stop thinking that change can only come from the top. I believe that change can also be provoked from the bottom.
That's absolutely true. No one is disagreeing with that. That's why in the beginning you talked about the mindset education of educating ourselves to even see, I don't know, to think entrepreneurship than employment. I mean, that's the future that we're going through. But you see, Professor Kelly, it's so nice and so easy to think that these are solutions that we need in a powerful continent. Show me absolutely one country. Nigeria produces a lot of barrel of oil. Let's just take in that sector, because I think, like I was saying, the problem of policy, this waste management that you're talking about, before we go to the case of Nigeria, I believe there are a lot of Africans that can manage that. But because of the governance, the poor governance in most countries, they will not hand over these contracts to people that can do it, to indigenous people that can do it. They will give it to a Chinese company who has to bribe them, or he has to give them incentives and stuff like that. And the African is always the last person, no matter you are a Cambridge or not Cambridge, a Harvard professor. Harvard is, I mean, one of the, yes, of course, you're in positions and top consultings and stuff like that. So much respect and my appreciation. But we know a lot of diasporas with skills, with so much skills, even not just the diaspora on the continent, but they cannot get such contracts. What is wrong with that?
Now, there are two things. There is a systemic problem that you faced. A systemic problem is when you're looking at things, from a typical macro perspective, where you're thinking that, okay, the government has the government is mandated to solve the problem of waste management in every country, which is true. Let us consider that, yes, the government is mandated, but the fact that we have waste all over the place, it means that there is a problem. It's either the government has failed or the government has not even given out the contracts. to the population. I mean, to whatever contractor from whatever continent they come, and they have to solve the problem for them. So that is why we still have the problem of waste. Does this stop a young African? Does it stop somebody from the diaspora who can come and say, okay, I want to start from a very micro level by making sure that the streets are clean, by making sure that the neighborhoods are clean? And how do you do that? It doesn't even need much investment. You start by educating people to understand that waste has to be separated. If the waste that has to be used for compost or manure or whatever it is set aside, that which is supposed to go for recycling is set aside, then you start looking now for those who are going to come and buy some of this waste. Nobody is going to stop you. I mean, the whole neighborhood is going to come out and support you. If any government official or elected official dares to say that you should stop, it is going to be the elected official and the whole neighborhood. Because from the initiative that you have driven, you are able to solve a problem. And sometimes to solve some of these problems, it doesn't take much. It takes 10 wheelbarrows or 20 trucks. It is 1/3 the cost of the iPhone that 80% of African kids are moving around with. This is capital. What is the cost of an iPhone? What is the cost of a smartphone, the kind of smartphone that some of our kids are using? So while I accept that there might be policy issues, there might be issues of racketeering and governance, it's also an opportunity for investment. In some of these areas, even you'll be surprised to know that there's no policy, there's no regulation that governs that. They didn't think about it, they've not yet thought about it. So there's a legal vacancy. And this legal vacancy is an opportunity. There are so many initiatives that I have seen in some of the countries and positions that I've held, which are initiated because somebody came up with an idea. And I've also seen situations where people are very critical. They don't understand how the system functions. Anywhere in the world, I studied in Harvard, I've lived around the world, did so many things. But if I were to relocate to America today, I need to take time to learn the system. I need to take time to understand the system. I need to take time to understand the rules, the regulation, the policies before I can fully integrate. It is the same everywhere. The fact that we are here and people are able to thrive and survive despite all the forecasts and all the things that show that, it is completely impossible. I mean, it shows that there are opportunities and we can thrive in some of these opportunities. So yes, there are policy gaps. Yes, these policy gaps in the threshold of 1 to 10, maybe we are at the level of 6. The good thing is that they have been identified as 10. It's already a pathway towards the right direction. The question now is, how do we make them? How do we accelerate to complete them? How do we get qualitative and quantitative metrics that we can use to evaluate and say it works? How can we hold our people more accountable? I mean, people in positions of authority. But while waiting, we will not fold our hands and if the mission is completely wiped out or goes without exploring the potentials that are around them because there's an absence of policy. Let us get our hands dirty and see how we can build our.
Thank you. We will take a very short, quick break. And after that, I'm going to take a live question from an audience out there in the States and for you in the studio. And then we'll get back to the next session. Actually, like from what you're saying, this wealth, the new wealth of Africa is the mindset education of the African to be able to identify where the money is. And in most cases, the money is on the street. And because Africa is still, in the sector of having these challenges, every challenges on the continent of Africa is an opportunity for investment. I hope we're noting it down. We've been saying it a couple of times. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Tata, just without interjecting, but just to contribute to what you're saying, isn't it intriguing that while Africans are running away, the whole world wants to come to Africa? Isn't it intriguing that while the Africa is presented, we present Africa the way we are presenting it at times, every other person is seeing an opportunity to come to Africa? Have we not asked ourselves that question? I will leave us with that before we go for the break. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I really So thank you for that quick break. I'm getting in a caller on the line for a question, and we'll pick up this first call from here. So greetings to you, ma'am. You've been wanting to push your question live on the show. So you are connected to the Pan-African Daily TV. Tell us where you're coming from, where you're watching from, and what is your question. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Suzanne. So I have a question for Prof. I'm working from California. My name is Vivian Bana. So I'm very impressed at what I hear today. And Prof, I'm very impressed because I hear a lot coming from us, because usually we are very quick on blaming our governments and all of that. But listening today, I just realized that we have a lot more to contribute, like getting our hands dirty, as you say. But then I still have a question, and this has to go back to our various governments in Africa. So we are ready to get our hands dirty, just like you said, but we would like to know some of the measures that are being taken by the governments, not just the government, the regional institutions. What are they putting in place to create a more favorable investment climate for the people that are kind of interested in investing in Africa? So that was my question for you today.
So you got it, Professor?
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, got it. Thank you, Vivian. Thanks for your question. If I look at the case of now at the continental level, you've heard of the African Free Trade Initiative. You've probably heard of, the integration projects, regional integration. I mean, one passport that would ease the movement of people and goods. You've heard of tax breaks that are given at the level of AFTA, the African Free Trade Zone. At the country level, if you take the Cameroon, for example, where I am, of incentives in which one of which is shop for the creation of an enterprise in 72 hours. You go to the one-stop shop and you have all your documentations. You're sure that in 72 on import substitution. What is the policy of import? The policy of import substitution is to reduce import and encourage local production and transformation. So you see that in key priorities areas that have been identified by government for to promote mechanized, let's say in the area of agriculture, large-scale production for mechanized farming, local transformation, and eventual exportation. You see that when you are in this area, in this sector, I mean, there are a host of tax breaks that you get from customs and from the tax revenue department. So there is a lot that I can't, if I want to start explaining, it might take almost the whole day. The problem usually is, like somebody rightly said, the communication is a problem, it's limited. We don't communicate sufficiently, because if there was sufficient communication and pointers to where some of this information can be gotten from, I think it's going to make life a lot more easier, because there is a lot that is being done, but it's usually always like it's a mouth to ear kind of a thing. Unlike in the Western world where, I mean, technology is quite advanced, communication is not something that is done sporadically or spontaneously. It is something that is well planned before, during, and after. So, Vivian, that is the little I can contribute. So I agree with Sinovia Indigo, because if there is a proper advertisement for the people to see or read, then it will be done. But the question is, do people even search? Because at least there are pieces of information out there. The free trade zone is out there. We see it. The African Trade Insurance and Development Organization that we're talking about, which is the organization par excellence that helps to mitigate the risk perception of the continent, is out there. But do people read? I mean, if today you're even afraid to come and invest in the continent, I mean, we're telling you that, look, Forget about the political and economic risk. We are going to ensure whatever investment you're bringing on the continent. At the level of the respective countries, you will see that there are policies, there are funds that have been put in place in the agricultural sector, for example, where if a banker or an investor finances local production and he feels government covers up to 50%, there are funds for that. So I think the problem here is really one of, first, communication properly. I think effort needs to be made in that direction. Secondly, those who want to come to the continent, do you do your homework? Do you read? Do you really take time to find out? That is the second thing. And the third thing is to see how, a structured channels could be gotten for some of this information to be put out there. I hope I've been able to throw some more light on your question, Vivian. Thank you.
Thank you also. Yes, I want to bring in this question from Sister Cheryl Penny. And also, after this question, you'll be telling us about this African trade insurance that you're saying is actually to ensure or to protect the risk of investors on the continent. I guess that's what I hear, which is what you were just newly elected, what your job would be, and what are the opportunities for the diaspora. So Cheryl's question, please.
Yeah, so Cheryl, the beauty of the generation X, Y, and Z is that you can be in one continent and you get a mentor in another part of the world or in another continent. So that is the beauty of life today. They say the world is a global village. I mean, you guys, you can take advantage of that. But now, when it comes to even some of the projects that I was talking about a while ago, in response to Vivian's question, you see that there are a lot of initiatives that are out there for the grassroots by government. But even the people at the grassroots, they are not aware. I mean, there is like some kind of a confrontation or a fight between the people and the administration. There are things that the administration has provided for the people. I know and have benefited for having mentored and coached groups of young men, women, young and old, in different areas. We've been able to mobilize resources for grassroots projects. And some of these resources are mobilized through government funding windows and opportunities that have been created. But the question is, do the people at the grassroots level, make the effort to go closer and try to find out? They don't do that. Do the people of the government communicate sufficiently for people to know that, okay, there is a fund that the government has created. There is money that has been put left and right available for this kind of resource, for this kind of activities. When I used to work for the UN and consult at the ADB and all those international organizations, I one time made a study, and it was interesting for me to find out that all these international organizations in every country where they find themselves, despite all the heavy presence that they seemingly may have, what they bring in financially does not even attain 5% of the budget of the country.
Yes.
But what they do with the 5% of the budget, with the 5% that what of the budget of the country that they bring in amounts to about 20% of what the government of that country has to spend to achieve that result. So they come in with 5%. So they come in with 5%, with just about 5%. Let's say they come in with, let's say, 50 million. What they are going to do with 50 million, because of good policies, because of governance, because of accountability, because of monitoring and evaluation and all of that, most governments have to spend close to 15-20% to achieve that result. Yes. So you see that the problem is not money. The problem is all of these things that we've mentioned around, which need sometimes to be reinforced. So the governments of this country can do very well without all these international and foreign partners. The amount of money that government puts in to grassroots projects is way beyond what any international organization can come and put in a particular country. But the particularity, the particularity of donors and all these international investors is the monitoring, is the evaluation, is the expertise, it's that control that is being put in place, and the overall communication around the project. Let me give you an example. People don't like what is free. When something is free, it is counterproductive. There was there was a test that was carried out between two countries. I don't know for sure, but I think it was Kenya and Uganda, where they were fighting an organization, I don't want to mention the name, was fighting against malaria. And in one of the countries, they distributed mosquito nets for free. And, you know, people took the mosquito net. In another country, they put a small fee for the mosquito net, and people bought the mosquito net. A few months later, when they came back to collect the sample of the result, the country where the mosquito nets were distributed for free, they used it for everything except for protection of malaria. So use it for wedding gown, to catch fish, to all kinds of crazy things. Nobody used it to fight against mosquitoes. But in the country where they bought the mosquito net, the level of malaria had dropped from what it used to be less than 40%. So it tells you that it is not just always about free giving to people.
Yes.
It's about awareness. It's about consciousness. It's about understanding, that what I need to do something. I need to contribute. I need to participate. I need to be intentional. I usually like the word being intentional, because when you're intentional, you know where you're headed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's quite interesting, and I can really agree with that. Let's just take another question here from Astrid Kamgain. What are the main drivers of economic growth in Africa for the coming decades?
Now, for us to solve the problems for us to identify the drives, let us look at the problems. What are our problems for the next decade? Number one problem that we have is demography. I mean, our population is increasing. We have young people, vibrant young people who are coming. We are hoping that we are 1.4 billion today. 60% of that population is 25 years, 30, 25 years and below, which means that this is a labor force. This is a workforce. It's our pride, but it can also be a weapon. We are looking at job creation. These people, they need jobs. Because they say, I don't mind, it's a devil's workshop. Another problem is, if we don't solve these job problems, it will take us to the next problem, which is killing our children over the sea, in the Red Seas, in Lampedusa, and all of that, in the high seas, and in the desert, where they are struggling to cross over to different continents. The next drive is to see how we can build the infrastructure of the continent, so that when we have conversations like this, we can compete with our peers in other continents without being afraid that network is going to stop at some point. We are not going to be able to communicate. Infrastructure drive is key. It's huge. We need infrastructure. The next economic drive that we are looking at is sustainability. They were talking about everything is climate related, climate finance, eco-friendly. Africa is looking to industrialize, but the industrialization of Africa should be done taking into consideration the sustainability components, the user-friendliness of our environment, and living in a more productive. One of the reasons is because, lessons have been learned from the over-pollution that came from the industrialization of the Western world. Today, we admire the Western world, but what was the cost? The depletion of the ozone and everything that comes with it. I know some people don't believe that, but for those of us who grew up with parents who were farming, you could see the shift, from pure organic crops when we were growing up to today being intentional about, fertilizing some of the crops. All of these problems that we've identified, waste management, all of these problems, communication, are problems that I see them as opportunities. And be it at the continental level with the African Union, be it at the regional level with the different regional institutions and organizations, the drive aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals is all what we've mentioned in no preferred order. Education, fighting poverty, fighting hunger, building infrastructures, transforming our environment, better management of waste, increased literacy, empowering women, though I take that with a pinch of seasoning, like I always like to say, because women are already empowered right from birth, and a whole lot of things. I hope I've been able to throw some light on your question, my dear friend.
Yes, absolutely, you have. I just want to give a shout out to Professor Jumaye Faye, who is greeting, signing it to greet you. And the audience, Professor Jumei is going to be our next guest speaker for tomorrow. And
Greetings,
he's
Professor.
actually, yes, so he's going to talk on the problems that you are listing is the list of our problems. He thinks, as a leader of the federal Pan-African movement, that our problems is organization. We're not organized. And so that brings me actually to the network, to the question that Cheryl asked here, which is very important. I think that would be fair for you. How can we in the diaspora create jobs and partnerships and partner with those on the continent?
Yeah, so the first thing to do is to identify a sector. Whatever business you want to do is to follow the landmark structure in terms of business and partnership development. The first question is, what do you really want? I mean, is there really a problem? Have you identified a problem that you want to solve? Because whether it's a business problem, and the intention to solve is to solve a problem, identify the problem. And once you have identified the problem, it could be a social problem, it could be a business problem, it could be a product, it could be a service. You have to ask yourself the right question. Is there a problem? Yes, there is a problem. The next thing is, can this problem be solved? Yes, it can be solved. What is the cost of solving this problem? You evaluate the total cost of solving the problem. Now, if you put in your money or your resources to solve this problem, are you going to make any profit if you are looking at profit? Or are you going to have any impact if you are looking at impact? Mm-hmm. If you can answer that question, you've already answered the cost-benefit analysis. And once you have that cost-benefit analysis, it answers the question of you at having a critical mass that can buy your service, that can buy your product, or that you can measure in terms of impact. Once you get this identified, the next thing is where do the resources come from? Have you already identified the resource? Did you save up for it? Are you intending to mobilize the resources? If you've saved up, if you intend to mobilize, you should understand that wherever it is that the resources are coming from, it should be clearly separated, it should be professionally managed, clearly separated from your personal resources. Let there be a professional structure that is answerable with clear segregation of functions and control mechanisms that can permit you to do your implementation. Make sure that the disbursement of resources eventually, once the project is or product or service or whatever is identified, should be done according to milestones so that you can evaluate one step before you get to the other. Because many a times people complain that people in the continent are not trustworthy. True, they might not be, but why are they not trustworthy? Are they educated enough? Have they done that line of business before? Have they been trained? Because it will be very, very unwise for you to take your uncle, your cousin, your brother, whoever it is that you want to do business with. He has never in his life had $1,000 at a go, and you come and give him $10,000 to manage. The guy becomes mad. So all of those are parameters that are supposed to be managed. So when something is professionally conceived, well structured, well documented, then you can now have a partner. If you want to have a partner, you need to make sure that you go through the legal process. Legal process because the law is there to protect you, and the continent is quite extremely strict when somebody who is supposed to exercise the law, I'm talking here in terms of a public notary or a lawyer or a magistrate. Some might be corrupt, but if they discover that you intentionally, misdirected or forged a document, the punishment at times is usually very hard. So there is an 80% chance that you fall on guys who are serious and will be able to protect your interests as far as that business is concerned. If you're a foreign national and you want to operate with somebody in the continent, involve your embassy to make sure that the legal experts at the level of your embassy are able to also enforce, because usually the embassies are respected, the ambassadors are respected, and the authorities are a little above the national authority in terms of rapport, their day-to-day functionality. So if all of this is well structured, well defined, professionally done, clear segregation of function, clear division of duties, milestone evaluation, milestones in terms of disbursement, I think you can get yourself a good partner on the continent, and you can do business without any problem. Another thing is most governments in the continent already have identified through paid studies with experts, key professional areas where they need investments, they need investors. So there is a bank of projects, there is a bank of priority areas. Sometimes you just need to go through the bank, identify what you think is needed, and then you can build from there. It could be a public-private partnership. It could be a private-private partnership. It could be with a decentralized territorial collectivity. It could be with a public enterprise. It could be with a public establishment. It could be with a moral person of private law. It could be with any kind of a person. So you just need to make sure that that due diligence is done. I think those are the two things that I can share as far as that question is concerned.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I hope that was real answered. Now, this is the question from Professor Jumai, but before we go to that question, please, I would like to appeal on each and every one of us that is watching the Pan-African Daily TV. It's a non-profit project, and we've been working for years upon years to make this platform free from sponsorship that could be controlling our narrative. So I'm urging all of you to donate to us. You can see our banner that is rolling, how you can support us, but I'm going to show you like this one. There's a lot of ways that you can support the Pan-African Daily, or you can be a partner of the Pan-African Daily. You can advertise with us. Exactly the issue that Professor Kelly was saying here, or that the executive team, Sinovia said, there's lack of advertisement. Now we have one of the most trusted platforms that connects the continent and its diaspora. So we're looking forward, like the African Trade Agency, African Developmental Bank, all these institutions that you're talking about, to be able to place their advertisement here where it reaches exactly the right target that we need. So another way of supporting Pan-African Daily is through your super chat. You can send us super chats live on the show right now as we're speaking. And talking about super chat, I want to congratulate and thank our brother. Wait, I have to show that. I'm sorry. One of our brothers, actually, during 3 days ago, without even our opinion, that's his contact, and he gave us a super chat of $10. I mean, it goes a lot. It goes a lot. And he is thanking Pan-African Daily for the knowledge for connecting Africans on the continent and the diaspora. And he says a lot. He has learned a lot. And the lectures and the discussions from experts on this platform has actually transformed his mindset completely about what he used to know about Africa. And today he's a happy investor on the continent of Africa. So thank you so very much. So that's another way to support Pan-African Daily, through your super chat. On super chat, you go on Pan-African Daily YouTube channel. You're going to see super chat, just like you can also enroll for a member to become a member. And our members are always specially recognized by a green tick. I mean, Cheryl, all of us here are members and stuff. But because we were silent, our members were all frozen. So I'm urging all of you to go and subscribe to your membership to Pan-African Daily. And this is one of the platforms where we are connecting investors, but we have to start by investing on this. I'm actually going to ask Professor Kelly that next question, what he thinks when we talk about creating wealth, about Pan-African Daily, if we can put a project, what is the sector that we'll have to put for financing for us to get a top-notch media that connects the whole world like we've been doing. So the third means of you supporting Pan-African Daily is just go on our PayPal and, contribute as much as you can, because we don't lack. Like he said, it's not a problem of money. We know our problem is the money. Our problem is just because Dr. Tata needs to tell us to do it the right way and used to give us the means to do it. So we have the super chat. You can advertise with us, and you can also donate live on the show with us by actually just sending your contribution. I see I think Professor Kelly is really working on that right now, as I see. Just give panafricandailytv@gmail.com on PayPal. It's going to help solve a lot of problems. And let us start by talking about investments, by investing already on this platform, because you see executive teams like Synovia, like Cheryl, like Stevie, these are all founding members. Johnny, I want to appreciate you for your work that you're doing behind the scenes. These are all executive members with whom they've been sponsoring a lot of young people, investing on young people without saying it, because that's how we do here on the Pan African Daily. We don't go about talking about things, but we're doing massive projects, actually on supporting young people, giving them equipments and materials that empower their lives. You know, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we're already doing it long time ago. So, but you see, your contribution as a viewer, as a follower, as our 105K followers, that's to donate just a $10, to the Pan African Daily TV. We're going to do massive investment with. Trust us, we're a woman organization. We're a mother-oriented organization, and you know what mothers do. You know, we don't spend money on guns and bullets. We actually take care of our communities and make sure that our girls, our boys are well protected. They are equipped, you know, whether they're going back to school or what other infrastructures that they need to be able to sustain them. So please make a donation today as I speak right now. Just go on our super chat is really kind of like easy, but you can understand YouTube always takes 30% out of it. So if you're donating $10, just know we're just gonna get $7, just for you to be conscious to know that I can donate really pretty more. So thank you very much for your attention on that. I'm going to come back. Yes, one other thing that I have to say about what we do here on the Pan African Daily Life. We have our brother John Africa. John Africa is actually a volunteer. So people volunteer in our community. Johnny doesn't only volunteer by putting also a contribution, but he really volunteers his time, like you see the Synovia and all of them. They coordinate the chat. They invite members to join the show. They animate, they ask questions. Here we talk about serious things about Africa, how we develop Africa by us. We're not joking here. We don't do entertainments here. We don't do TikTok dance and whatever thing that we want to create money for ourselves. The development concept of the Pan African Daily, I only saw it on Professor Nelly's project as a non-profit organization called RICO, which empowers the community. So we're still going to talk about that in a very short while. So while you're watching, the last thing I'm urging you to do is to subscribe. Just your subscription go a long way. While you're speaking right now, you just click the small little bell on the channel of Pan African Daily and subscribe. It's very easy to do like that. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention. Now I get back to the studio, and particularly, you know, with the question of Professor Jumay. Professor Jumay asked a very important question here. Where are we? Oh. Wait, excuse me. Cheryl, we're going to come to your question, but I want to pick the question of Professor Jumai, because when professors meet and they talk professor language, right? Yeah, we know what it is. I mean, we have the question here. He talked something about the leaders. Okay, yeah, here we go. Here we go. This is the professor. This is a question from your colleague, Professor Jumai Faye. Isn't the inability of a state to take advantage of the demographic dividend, which is the real issue? Because you talked about, you know, prospects, our demographics. So what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think the demographics are very important, and our states, like Professor is mentioning, if the full potential of the youth could be captured, of our demographics could be captured, I think it's going to play a pivotal role to spiral the economic growth of the country. Now, if we go by the statement that time is money, and we look at these young people who are the ages of, let's say, 20 to 30 years, and you look at the number of hours that the economy is, the number of hours that they could have been generating in terms of revenue if they were working. and you quantify that total number of hours, for the total number of unemployed, you will see that the country is losing billions. The continent is losing billions because these are young to the country, to the continent, yet they are unemployed. But there is the problem of the system. The enabling environment might not necessarily be there from a policy perspective, from a country perspective. But what are the youth themselves doing in terms of taking advantage and creating? In my place, they say when a child succeeds, he's no longer the child of the mother, it becomes the child of the community. Why is it the child of the community? Because the child has the potential to solve the problems and impact his environment. Generally, people don't care how the child got to, the level at which he is able to take care. What the society needs is to see useful and meaningful and impactful young people. And if they are not taking care of you, if your community is not taking care of you, if your government does not have sufficient infrastructure or resources to take care of you, you should be able to take care of yourself. One thing that we don't understand in the continent is that, as opposed to the Western world, children are pushed into more responsibility than in the continent. In the continent, at 20, 25 years, a child is still living in the house and they're calling him papi and mommy and mommy and daddy and all of that. In the Western world, it doesn't matter whether your parents are rich or not. It doesn't matter whether you were adopted or not. At 16 years, if we take the case of America, you are an adult and you participate in the well-being of your household and your family. Now, when we take our children here in Africa and say, okay, our system may not be as developed as theirs, and they have to contribute in the activities that the parents have been doing, maybe petty trading, maybe subsistence agriculture, maybe it becomes a matter of child labor. The context is different, and we need to contextualize our solutions and our problems. We are not saying that people should be underexploited or overexploited, but I'm looking here at the independence of children in the Western world who are able to take care of themselves as from the age 16. They didn't wait for government. Even those who go to the university, people don't understand that the concept of scholarship is to promote excellence. Africans think that there is a lot of scholarship that is available in the Western world. No, my friend. The concept of scholarship is to promote excellence. And fortunately, their systems are so advanced that if you take the case of America, you can go to college and you pay, and the government pays for you, but you're going to work and refund that money. Many people don't know that Obama finished paying his school fee loan during his second mandate as president. This same President Obama, I like to take for an example, blacks in America, they will tell you that this country is corrupt, it has problems. This is a child mixed race with all the problems that come with being mixed race in America, but was able to move with a mother who was how we know she was, with a father who virtually abandoned him. Others would have hidden under that story. And that is most of the story. That's the story that most of our young people tell in Africa. My mother died. My father did not have money. My mother did not have money. This one, all those kind of useless excuses. And at the end of the day, who cares? No, complaint is a boring narrative. And that's why I always like to say that we Africans, we have to stop complaining. Nobody likes to hear about complaint. If they throw a young kid into a boardroom where you have, Elon Musk and all these wealthy guys in the world, and you come there and start saying that, I'm sorry, I'm here because, I was just pushed in, my father did not have money. No, nobody cares to hear. But if you come in and say, look, sorry to interrupt your meeting. If there is anybody here that needs water, we need a piece of paper. If there is a trash that I can carry out, one person amongst those billionaires will say, I need water, I need a pen, I need something. So the mindset is what I think we should work towards changing, Professor. Government may have its own issues in absorbing this potential that is making us lose billions, because these are young people at their prime. If you go by the evaluation that an hour of work is $10, and you take 60 million children, or I don't know, 60% of the African population who are jobless, and you multiply by the number of hours that they are jobless, and they could have been producing money, it tells you, I mean, what look talking in terms of trillions of dollars that we are losing in the continent. But at the same time, these children are eating. Some of these very children have smartphones, expensive items. It tells you that the focus is on other things. That is my humble submission.
Thank you very much, Professor Kelly. And I just want to give attention to contributors that are asking some of the really financial issues here that we're solving here. I get this question from a brother or sister Likaya. We've seen your campaign on talking about one of the greatest Pan-Africanists that was recently arrested in Paris in the name of Kemi Seba. Kemi Seba is a very renowned friend that we know personally, and recently, and these are Africans that are talking straight talk in the eyes of France and stuff like that. Yes, we do understand that, and we thank you for that information, because Africans actually are not aware. We do a lot of things, advocacy, awareness, campaigns, and policy debate, and also economic empowerment in every socio-economic, cultural development setup of Africa, the Africa we want by Africans. So thank you. You say, I've been planning to support financially. There's no Zelle or Cash App. Brother, we're working to actually install that, but at least you can go straight and donate to our PayPal, and the address, and I told you, it's just the panafricandailytv@gmail.com for now, and why we customize the Zelle and the Cash App to be able to get such. We'll be doing it in a very short while. So yes, if not, I'll set up PayPal. I've been hesitant with PayPal for a while. Please go with our PayPal. It's secured. We're living here, right? And we're talking to an economic expert. He's right here. He can tell you, some of the. I just don't really like it because it's not African, to be honest with you. But the security of PayPal, I can guarantee you that I think is less so more for now as we contribute. And then I also have this here from Fire, who said, what's the best way to donate, PayPal or Super Chat? I would go with PayPal or Super Chat, depending on how easy you can go. And you also asked, how can you advertise, or how can what advertise? I said, just send us an inquiry at panafricandailytv@gmail.com, and we'll send you the conditions on how to donate, how to support, how to advertise on Pan African Daily. So thank you very much for that. And I'm so sorry if I had to interrupt, but we need it. We all of us are working as volunteers here. No payment. We have to pay bills of hosting. We have to pay bills and bills and bills and bills of So it's the time us to do. So another very important, yes. Dr. Kingsley, very informal. I want to financially support too. So, yes, contributing to the continent, investing in the continent, and all that. I think we are almost exhausting our questions right here, but please make sure you continue to ask a lot of questions, because this professor right here has too much knowledge. Now, let's get into something that I just said a while ago, and I think Cheryl asked that question. We're talking about finance. The African social governance system works with the community. As we can say, when people often hear about non-profits, people always think, yeah, it's charity, is this, but that's the African social system of governance. And non-profit doesn't mean it's just charity. It's a form of business. And the difference in the non-charity, in the charity project, I love non-profit. I've always existed as a non-profit, and I will always die and come back as a non-profit. Why? Because you don't own anything. Pan-African Daily, we don't own it. I don't own it. I might have founded it. But this organization and this platform would continue to exist without me or without us. That's what non-profit does. It means any investment that we've done here to set up, to create this platform, bring our professors share knowledge for free, a professor like this, it'll be earning $1,500 for this conversation at the Harvard University, right? But now they are volunteering their time and their money to teach us something that we need to go and study in the university, to pay a lot of money, take hundreds of thousands of student loans to hear crap. And they don't even really go into the facts and details and straight on the point. So our work on the Pan-African Daily is very important. Like our colleague said, it is the African university that is for free, because the quality of the professors that we bring here to give us knowledge that they've invested in is enormous. So non-profit doesn't just mean charity, but Professor Kelly, you also are in the sector, very much in the sector of non-profit. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you've been doing around? And I also volunteered on your organization. Please make sure you tell my audience.
Yeah, so RICO Foundation is a concept I put in place to see how we can rebuild people. RICO comes from reconstruction. And what are we reconstructing? We're reconstructing lives. We're reconstructing people. We're reconstructing our communities. We're reconstructing our societies. There is a lot of people in the community who are broken down, who are torn apart. We're trying to see how we can bring them together. We're trying to see how we can give hope to our less privileged children around our community. But most importantly, I am keen about projects that, empower financially, because for me, it's always about, getting that economic independence that can permit us to build the children that we have. I am one who believes that I'm a fervent believer of the statement that complaint is a very, very boring narrative. I don't like people who complain. I understand people have difficulties, and when you have difficulties, we need to sit down and talk and find solutions. I like people who come up with projects. I like people who come with ideas. I like people who talk very little about people and who focus more about being able to generously contribute and impact our environment. And that is why I always tell parents when I have the opportunity to talk to them, I say maybe one of the problems is that we've asked for too many years. We concern ourselves more about what our children want to become rather than the type of people they want to be in society. Because if you start asking your children, what kind of person do you want to be in society? A child who has as ambition to be a good father, a good mother, a useful person to himself, a useful person to the community, will obviously want to educate himself, will obviously want to find something doing, will need to have a skill, will need to have a competence, will need to be useful. But when you focus more about what the child wants to be in society, then it takes out the human part of the child, because not all rich people are givers, are people who impact positively. Not all grown-ups have skills. Not all grown-ups have competency. So maybe we need to flip the question. And our societies have been plagued with quite a lot of things, and sometimes the opportunities even in the communities are humongous, but we simply just don't know. I always have a very good example. The first time I went to the US, I went to a restaurant after having eaten a lot of, foods that I didn't quite recognize. And one day I went to an open restaurant, to a buffet, and I said to myself, I'm going to eat just the things that I see and I recognize. And on the buffet table, I could recognize corn, I could recognize sweet potatoes, and I could recognize pumpkin. So I decided to go for sweet potatoes and pumpkin. And they gave me a bill of $65. I shouted and I asked for the chef. And when the chef came, he said, but why did you shout? I said, it's too expensive. He said, why is it too expensive? I said, but it's just potato and pumpkin. He said, but this is very organic and this is meant for the rich in America. If you are not of a certain class, a certain category, you can't have that. I said, what? I said, in my village, we use it to feed pigs. We don't eat potatoes, we don't eat pumpkin. If you are visited in the village and they see you cooking pumpkin and sweet potato, it means hunger has entered your house. And that is why we have very healthy pigs and healthy animals around and stuff. Then he took time now to give me a different perspective of those crops. He said, look, you see, this pumpkin is very good for men. It helps with prostate, it helps with this and that and that. You see the potato, it has vegetable fat, it's not this. and it changed my whole dimension. But to tell somebody in the village that you have to stop eating some of the things you eat, focus on sweet potatoes and pumpkin, he'll tell you that I'm poor. So poverty is what has been defined by others. Poverty is what we've been told about by others.
Mhm.
When you come to the Western world, people are living in tall buildings and flats because there is cold. So the tendency for them to live in clusters so they can warm themselves and it can be cheaper. But their dream is to live in the wild like we are in Africa. People economize their money in the Western world because they dream to come on vacation to Africa. They want to come and live that free life under the sun, they bathe under the sun, they live naturally and all of that. It is a thought pattern. It is what we've been educated and the way we think. That is what has shaped our destiny. That is why some of the middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class who are living in the big cities, for them, living rich means eating junk. What others eat in the Western world, because it's produced in large scale to feed the population, it is what our own rich here eat, and they are surprised. Why are we so sick? Why are we so obese? Why are we having all the problems? And then they get worried. Why people who live in the villages with less, medical facilities live longer than you who live in the city thinking you're rich, but you're eating frozen chicken that has stayed 3 months in the sea before it gets to Africa. So I think that the mindset is something that we need to look at. We need to change the perception. And that change of mindset and perception is what we are trying to do with RICO Foundation. And we are looking forward to, eventually also having partners, technical partners who can support us, because we believe that if we have technical partners who can share, there's always money. There's money everywhere. I mean, money always follows ideas. If you have brilliant ideas, have brilliant projects, money will always come. So I don't always like to put financial partners in front, because, for me, that is not the most important. What is the most important is to have a structured vision, structured idea, like what we've tried to come up with in RICO. And that is how we try to rebuild cities, lives, communities, but most importantly, people.
The people, that's the key word of Ubuntu Nest, and that's the African spirituality that we preach every day on the Pan-African Daily TV. Without people, we're not Africans, because Africans are humans and we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So of course, yes. Sinovia is asking, please, can you repeat the name of your organization again?
RICO Foundation. I think you can pull up the email address or something. It is called RICO Foundation. RICO, RECO Foundation. RICO Foundation.
Yes, no problem. Yes, I know we've been doing it, Sinovia. You are an executive on the team. I will give you that contact, because like all our partners, as you are beginning to see, we're talking about networking. We're talking about building sustainable networking. Professor Jume is talking about organizing ourselves. So RICO is an official partner of ours, right? Where we support the projects, and they also support our projects. It's the same thing like we're going to have on Sunday, the proprietor or the chancellor of ICTU University, who was so impressed about us hosting Professor Jean Emmanuel Pondi, who is the vice chancellor of the university. And he was like, I've never seen this kind of platform where they give voices, African voices to our own people telling our own story. So he's also looking forward. He's going to be live with us, and once it's partnering with us. So actually, most of the things, and you do know, we partner with all our professors, Professor Baina Bello's foundation of, Fondation Felicité. You see, when they have projects, they just stream live on Pan-African Daily. So it's the same thing. We're going to be giving our platforms, not just us hosting them, but also to give our platforms for them to come present and host their own individual programs. And so this way we can network and support one another in a more precious way. So thank you very much. Professor Kelly, one last question. I know you're really tired. We're rounding up. Okay. It's being on the Pan-African Daily, like I said, is not just we come and samba. I think we're so thankful for the insightful. I mean, all of us were waiting to arrest you here on the show and say, this is the finance manager of the continent. Where does our money go to? So, but like I said, in the collective interest of how prosperous is the wealth of the continent serving Africans. So, how can Africans benefit from the wealth of, particularly the new wealth of the continent? And is it wrong to say the new wealth of the African continent is the mindset and the conscious education, Professor?
No, you're not. You're not wrong, Dr. Tata. I think that statistics are there to show. I mean, some of the most prosperous countries in the world don't have any natural resource. They go with people, and some of the countries that have really made it in Africa, that have stood out, like countries in the East Africa, like Rwanda and Kenya and Tanzania. It is not fundamentally because they are extremely wealthy in terms of natural resources, because of the service industry, and the service industry is mainly because of the mindset, the vision. If you look at Switzerland, which is considered one of the richest in Europe, I mean, what natural resource do they have? I think the mind is something that is magical. Neurologists say that what we see in the world today, man traveling to the moon, going places and stuff, is just about 15% of human capacity. So imagine if we can activate just 20% or 25% of our capacity individually before collectively. One of the problems that we have in Africa is idleness. I always tell people that try, even if you want to do sustainable, how do you call it? You want to do sustainable agriculture, or the micro agriculture. Put in 2 hours every day when you get up at 6 o'clock. Put in 2 hours before you go to your activities at 8 o'clock. Your day starts at 8 o'clock, right? So put in 2 hours of effective work before you go out, and multiply that by a month and see what you would have covered. Start doing some writing. Put in 2 hours every day, and in a month, you see what you would have covered. When you look at the effective productivity of this population that we are talking about in a day, it is way below 10%. So imagine if we decide to say, okay, let us forget about the invisible hand, because there's the invisible hand that drives the economy. We've had the attitude and habit of always blaming, oh, it is the colonizers who came with this, it is the colonizers who came with that. Let's give the colonizers all what they took. What they thought they took 20 years, 50 years, 100 years is nothing compared to what we have discovered now. It's nothing compared to the potential that we have now. Let's focus on that potential. We will build and exclude whoever it is that is controlling us, to the point that they will come and negotiate. Why? Because of the mind. It is all about the way we think. It is all about how time is being used. The person who said time is money thought it well, because life in itself is measured in time. If they want to know how long you've been around, it's time, it's age. What is age? Age is time. Age is the number of years, the number of days, the number of hours that you've been on earth. So it all boils down to the mindset, like you said. It all boils down to how we use our time. As Africans, everywhere you go in the world, Africans are always the minority community in terms of development, in terms of critical mass, in terms of doing things together, in terms of, we are a force to reckon with. Let's take the responsibility of, okay, because we are so strong of a force, we've been fought for generations. But now that we are conscious, what is stopping us from coming together? What is stopping us from changing the narrative, from reorientating the story and telling our own, crafting our own story the way we want it to be crafted? We are blaming everybody. The Bible was written because they told us this. This was done because our history was written like this. Why did we write our own history? When God created the world, did he create some people first and created Africa after? Did he not create the world at the same time? How come at one point did others overtake us to the point of enslaving us? I mean, these are questions that I sit sometimes and I contemplate. But I don't want to waste my life contemplating and blaming. It is important. The history is there. We know those who came before us, those who came before our parents, those who came before our grandparents, they did what they are supposed to do. They didn't know better. We know a bit better. We have a force. I mean, with a smartphone today, you're a journalist, no matter where you find yourself. What do you do with it? So I think that the world, beyond the natural resources of the continent, is the mindset. And we should see how we can harness that and make it, something prosperous for the continent.
One last question from Cheryl. Because we're still in the sector of education. I mean, I read the research paper of Ibrahim Moore talking about that paper talked about Africa in the world and the world in Africa. It's a study that was done in 2023, very elaborate. One of the sectors that that research publication dealt in was the soft skills of the continent. And he said, I mean, the market that it's growing is crazy. But of course, the biggest investment opportunity that he said, if Africans are wise to take it as an opportunity, is education. Mindset conscious education. In that sector, he said, investments are actually like zero. And when you talk to every single African youth, you just, that's my experience. You just tell them something they didn't know. You see the way they are hungry for that knowledge. Why are they actually, like we say, dying and crossing to the Mediterranean? Because they see the way we think once we cross here. Forget about economy, independence or what. But there is power in knowledge, too much power. Because they can give you all a lot of money. But if you're just dumb, you don't even know what to do with it, you're just going to waste it in bars and palos and whatever, and just brands and crazy stuff.
Doctor,
as a matter of fact.
yeah, Doctor,
Yes.
There's an interesting question there from Cheryl. I think
Yes.
Cheryl, yeah, what Nelson Mandela said is true, but I think one of the problems too that we have with our fellow brothers and sisters from the diaspora, it is the approach towards mentorship. Mentorship should not come from a place of condescendence. It should not come from the
Yes.
place of I know it all. It should come from a place of I want to contribute, I want to build. The knowledge from the diaspora today is such that it's unlimited. The potentials are too much. But what kind of, if for the knowledge to be shared and for mentors and mentees, to benefit from this knowledge, I mean, there should be a conscious program that is in place. Part of which is what Dr. Tata has put in place. I mean, you guys are in the diaspora, I'm on the continent, but we are able to communicate. And we have so many young people who have come on board and they are understanding some of the things that they are doing. For you to be able to mentor, you need to have a calendar, you need to have a plan. You need to be out there for the mentees to identify you and know that, okay, this is somebody that has the potential and is willing to invest his or her time to share and build the capacity. But if you cannot be identified as a mentor, and then you cannot easily find a mentee. So I think one of the things that the diasporans are supposed to do is to be intentional about that. Now, if you take a country like America, you look at the amount of money that the diaspora is sending back to the building of the continent. I mean, it's crazy. For a long period of time, that's what was happening also in Senegal and many countries. If you come to Africa, to Cameroon, for example, especially in the English-speaking part of the country, you see that the economy of the English-speaking part of the country, at some point, 40% depended on money that was coming from the diaspora. When you look at the buildings, the investments, and all what was happening. So things are happening, but they're happening informally. But now, if we want to look at the diaspora from a macro perspective, it should be structured. All African countries are opening their arms to the diaspora. Ghana is a good example with policies and institutional provisions that have embraced people from the diaspora. Gabon has similar initiative, Cameroon has similar initiative. All other countries in Africa, they are ready, they are willing, they are hungry. And they always look at you guys from a superiority complex. that these are people who are widely traveled, who have lived, who are exposed, who are coming with things. But the things that you're coming with, they should be things that can meet up with the demands of the continent. Don't come from an imposing stature or perspective and say that, okay, as I'm coming, all what these guys are doing is nonsense. I am going to come and, it's intriguing how in Cameroon, for example, those who build with plans are considered poor people. In America, all houses are built with plan, and it is for rich people. Here, we say we don't have money, but we build with cement blocks. It's durable. That is why we are always amazed when there is a catastrophe and all houses are burnt down. Here, a house cannot be completely burnt down. So if you're coming here and thinking that, okay, I want to come and do a low housing project, a low cost housing project, and you think you will come and use local material, you have to factor in the mindset and the mentality of the people when it comes to some of the local material. You need to sell it in a way that they would understand the value and the importance. Because what is valuable to you is not necessarily what is valuable to me. I told people about food. What you consider there as, junk, to some people here, they consider it, as something very precious, and vice versa. What you consider there very expensive, here it is what people eat in the villages. So it all just depends on the approach. So I think that our diaspora is strong, is beautiful, and whatever it is, but the systems should be put in place. And we should not forget that some of the solutions that you want to bring, you're bringing them from a place of a continent that has been existing legally and formally, well-structured, organized for over 200 years. When you talk about a welfare system, you're driving your inspiration from where you grew, which is America. You want to bring it to most countries in the continent that have existed for less than 100 years. Some are 50 years, some are 60 years, some are getting to 70 years. They are still in the process of discovering themselves. It is not by corruption, it is not by governance, it is not whatever, it is just the process. And if you look at some of your countries, 70 years, when they were 70 years old, you discover that we are way advanced. Does that mean there is no room for improvement? There is huge room for improvement. But I'm just saying that we should create a balance. Thank you.
So people, that's the time to vote. We're voting when we have our first professors live on the show. And I think my opinion, I don't want to share my opinion. I'll share the last opinion. Please drop your comment in the chat if you think what you think about Professor Kelly to be in our mentorship program as a lecturer and as a contributor to the Pan-African Daily TV. Please drop it in the comment section. And we have just 5 minutes to round up so that by 5 minutes, we're giving out that prize, and we're congratulating our guest for the first time who has come to stay, because our diaspora rates you. From what you teach us, regardless, it's teachings from the heart to heart. So normally when you're a first-time professor on our show, we actually ask people to drop their comments about you. But then also we have a lot of links to share about Professor Kelly here. Most of the links, I just could not figure them out right now. He's on LinkedIn, he's on Wikipedia, he's reading all these books. You just in Amazon, on Amazon, you just need to type Professor Kelly Moore Kinsley, and yes, you're going to find him on Wikigenius, all the platforms that he's been able to occupy. Most of it he doesn't just want to share it here with us. I'm still looking for the link while you're posting your comments and you're rating this professor here. We might be we need him back. Everybody's just saying we need Baba Kinsley here. Yes, Baba is a very honorable title that we give, to our scholars and our researchers, because we are gradually planning our award to all our scholars and the contributors of Pan-African Daily TV for the past 4 years. So yes, so I think you're already inside. So let me drop some of the links where we can get Professor Kelly. There's so much I'm learning. Snova is saying it. And yeah, so you're already rated from Snovia. You can find him on LinkedIn. That's the link right there. Of course, you will always have him on Pan African Daily TV. Marshall is saying, please invite him to be a mentor weekly or bi-weekly on the platform, and asking if that's possible to do. Of course, not directly. He can also do recordings, because when you tell them like this, they're so busy. These people, they're sitting on all boats somewhere. So if we tell him to come, I think it might drive him away. But a recording, these mentorship programs, I think is a very important thing. So you can find his books on the books he's authored. If you want to know more about financing and management and stuff like that, on of course on Amazon and Wikipedia. I already sent that, so I want to send the link from LinkedIn. You see, that's what we do. That's how we support each other. And yeah, looking forward to know that we're going to get a fat donation from the contribution of Professor Kelly right here. And that's going to feature on our PayPal. I can guarantee you. I mean, I know he's a cheerful giver, not a cheerful giver, but he's somebody that invests in the right places to be, even just by showing that symbol and tags and stuff like that. But also, Professor Kelly has a personal website which you can actually send inquiries and requests. I'm also going to put that one here. Oh my God. Clifton, where were you? We're almost rounding up and you're just joining in. Thank you, kings and queens. Thank you. So yes, these are all actually, yes, the links from Professor Kelly sitting here. If I miss something, Professor, please let me know. And reminding you again that tomorrow is Professor Jumai's lecture on the need for us to organize is now, because we have everything that we say, like Professor Kelly is saying, it's not about money, but how we organize and structure ourselves. And the Pan-African Federalist Movement is actually doing a great job. He's going to tell us much about that. He's going to lecture us about that. So thank you, Professor Kelly. While we'll be doing our betting and other stuff, so you'll get the result actually shared on your page, or anyhow that we're going to do. Maybe you get a small certificate from us by the time we're awarding. So what do you have to say for the last time? What is the last
I want to say,
audience? First and foremost, are you going to help us with the mentorship program, do productions and stuff like that, where we can set in our mentorship,
yeah,
who support
you said
how you want.
we can't put the chariot before the horse. I mean, you said we should wait for the voting scores. I might be willing, but the audience may say otherwise. So let's wait and see if the audience is okay. We need him. We think he's good. We think he was meaningful, and we think we can continue exchanging with him. Once we get that verdict, I think I'll be able to make an opinion. But you know that anything for the continent, I always give in my best. Concluding, I would say that Africa is ours, and my grandmother used to tell me that if you reject where you're coming from, know that anywhere you're going to be rejected. We should stop calumnizing our continent. We should start speaking positive things about the continent. That is what is called the culture of blessing. Blessings are good things said. When you start having a positive vibe, when you start looking at things from a right perspective, when you start having the belief that we can change our continent, when we start taking responsibility, then it's a big foot in the right direction, because then options open up. Then you attract people of goodwill, you attract like-minded people, and you start building. And I want to leave us with this question: why do we think that with all the problems that come up recurrently, plaguing our minds, and we ourselves calumnizing the continent, running away from the continent, why do we think others are running in the opposite direction? While we're struggling to leave, others are fighting to come in. Have we sat down to really contemplate that question? Why are Chinese people interested in the continent? Why are Americans, America of all continents, of all countries, why is it interested suddenly in Africa? They had shared the world and said, okay, old Europe, take Africa, rebuild. And whatever you do in Africa, it's your business. Why are they suddenly interested? Why is the whole continent fighting to hold on to Africa? Why is everybody talking about Africa? Why is everybody struggling to come to Africa? Yet, why are Africans running away? I think if we can sit down and reflect deep on some of these questions, I think it's going to change our perception of the continent, our perception of the way we do business, and maybe, just maybe, we will start having the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you all for inviting me, and have a blessed
Yes,
evening.
I have one really great, your book was just bought right now, live here. Is that what I saw? Yes, here. I just added Professor's book to my cart, via Amazon. That's the way we are. Conscious
Thank you,
community.
Sinovia. Appreciate it. Yeah. There is a lot that I contemplate on my spare time, and I just throw it out there in the form of books and articles. And I think I pray and I hope that you guys could read and make meaning out of it. And I will appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Professor. I know it's very late right now, and we all are also closing, but this is the right time to actually get connected. And this show is going to be watch, and more books would be bought, and then your voting would actually appear. That we actually do need your support. Thank you very much. Greetings to your lovely, beloved continent and your family and your loved ones. And we wish you good health, prosperity, and so much money and wisdom to share with us on Pan African Daily. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you too. I wish you guys all the love and blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace and blessing. Thank you. Wow. Okay. So people, we are on time, just on time. And I want to thank all of you for your contribution, for your support. We're going to start rating our professors and from the knowledge that we actually gain from it, and begin to put meanings to our life, and beginning to do the practical things, as we say now. While we're talking about political debate and policies and all the things that are working against us, we should also be empowering ourselves to be a part of the cake on the continent. That is very important, because we can then become like chasing the cheese. I think there's a small book that I read at the beginning of my studies when I came here. It's like, who stole my cheese, or who stole the cheese? If you find that book, please read it. It's just it's a short story, as a matter of fact. Who stole the cheese, or who stole my cheese? And you understand that, while people are walking around and looking, some people are just chasing a cheese that they already had. So I want to thank you. This is the kind of quality that we'll be having on our Pan African Daily. And please do tune in tomorrow with Professor Jumai. It's a very powerful conversation that would actually orientate us on how can we organize ourselves. The time is now. Every African is aware of the past, or the conscious community as a means of that. Those that are still going to continue to be talking about those things, they are also coming up. But us in the Pan-African Daily TV, we are upgrading to another standard of knowing and learning strategically how to be a part of the cake of your continent. So if we're not prosperous through our wealth, there's just no reason. So I thank you so very much for your contribution. Good night to all of us. We're going to see ourselves tomorrow with Professor Jumai. I thank all of you for your support, contributions, comments, everything that we've been doing here. I'm just trying to look at the outro banner. I cannot really see it here. Oh my God, this chat is so crazy. All right. I think I'll find it here. So good night, people. What is going on? I just want to see that. Okay. So good night. We see ourselves tomorrow, same time with Professor Jumai. Good.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. You are watching the Pan African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.